move on to the next one, a panel between 4 people. So quickly going to do some introductions. Anmol Mundhra, AGM at Aster DM Healthcare, brings a strong background in financial modeling, market assessment, and growth strategy, with prior experience at Alvarez and Marcel and Deloitte. Known for his exceptional attention to detail, he's one of the most meticulous professionals out there. Having stepped into his role just a month ago, we're excited to see the impact he'll make. Welcome, Anmol. Please come in. Next, we've got Aditya. He's the head of buying process and demand planning at Landmark Group, driving strategic growth and operational efficiency. With prior experience at Birla Carbon and Aditya Birla Capital, his expertise spans market development, strategic alliances, and supply chain management. An interesting fact about Aditya, he was part of his university sports committee, university cricket team, university football team, and during his masters at IIM Lucknow, he played for the institute football team. Whew. A leader on and off field. Welcome, Aditya. Vishesh is the Director of Customer Success at Fynd, with over 6 years of experience driving the growth of Fynd Store OS. A go-to expert in retail tech and omnichannel strategy, he bridges innovation and execution to create seamless shopping experiences in stores. Beyond work, he's a sneakerhead who loves skating around the city. He's also just moved to Dubai with his better half, his new better half. And so we'll hopefully see him skating around a bit more. Big welcome to you, Vishesh. And our moderator for the evening, Dharmendra.
It'll go us. Maybe me and Anmol can share and you guys can share. So good evening again. I think Kritika's already done the introduction, so we won't spend more time there. She's done a better job than I would have done for myself. But I think the fun part, I was really looking forward to this conversation because we have a great mix. We have 3 different diverse functions. We have an expert in e-commerce, we have an expert in buying, planning, merchandising, and we have a person who's built the entire commerce platform for Fynd, which is the entire unified technology experience and how stores operate and what are new stores going to look like in the future, right? But all of us are servants of our customers and we're all looking forward to building them one same goal, right? And therefore, again, with the same theme of, what the next 5 years look like, would be great to get insights from all of you. We'll probably start off with you, Anmol, where, pharmacies are kind of uniquely positioned that there's a mix of products which are lifestyle and products which are, subscription based or prescription based, not subscription, sorry. So, but I think, so how do you kind of look at from an e-commerce strategy and execution perspective, what are key challenges that you face so far and how you kind of figuring out solutions for the way forward?
Sure. Thanks, Dharmendra. So overall for us, I think Aster is known for being very good in prescription, which is the necessary medication that you need. What we are looking to kind of transition to is the wellness aspect of your well-being. We now want to bring the entire Aster ecosystem on a digital platform, so that includes hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, opticals, everything together in one. And that helps you to transition seamlessly across different offerings that we have. I think from an e-commerce perspective, the biggest challenge is, of course, is the basics, right? Assortment, pricing, availability. So those are the key aspects that we're trying to track. And then moving on to how the customer is also changing in terms of its demands, right? Going more hyper-local, getting better service. So those are the key basics that we focus on. But what we also want to look at is how we make the experience between offline and online very seamless. So just as an example, you go to a pharmacy, you will, for a prescription, you will maybe face certain waiting times, insurance rejections, product not in stock, right? So what we're trying to do is if you book your consultation through the app, you can pre-order your medicines, come to the offline clinic, and then just go back home and we'll get the medicines delivered to you. So we're trying to bridge that gap so that you do not feel the need to be either offline or online. So that's where we're trying to transition to.
I think great point. Aditya, you represent demand planning for a retailer who's largely offline in that sense, right? And a large part of your proportion of sales comes from offline, and demand planning plays a very key role in fast fashion. So, what are your key challenges, and how are you coming up with solutions?
So I think, first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I've kind of forgotten that I play so many sports because I've not done that sometime. You're right. So essentially, with Splash, which is a fast fashion company of Landmark Group, primarily offline, demand planning is. There was a time that demand planning was simpler, probably about 10 years ago, when fashion was more of a commodity, wherein people came to the stores to buy t-shirts, or the best they had is they want to buy a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt. Today, one with the younger generation getting so much access to the global trends, they've become much more demanding. That they probably know what's going on the ramp walk, and they want an adaptation of that at about 49 dirhams or a 50 dirham price point. And secondly, I think most of the people in retail have probably acknowledged the fact that the current generation of Gen Z have not been so loyal to any of the brands. The companies like H&M, who never complained about customer churn, today are talking about customer churn in their reports, which means even they are losing customers. So demand essentially breaks into two parts. One is the commodity part of it, where it's more quantitative, where what you've sold last year, you will try and get that more of this year. Now that goes against the law of fast fashion, because what you've sold last year is probably you don't want to sell that this year because the customer wants something else. And that's where the qualitative part of it comes in, and that's where global companies like WGSN have analytic tools that talks about what would be in the trend. And there are essentially a lot of technologies going around the globe, but at least in my last 4 years, I've not seen anybody able to crack that piece, because if you walk into any of a fashion retail store, say a Zara store, or a Splash store, or an H&M store, you'd see about 5,000-6,000 options on the floor, between 5,000-6,000 kind of pieces, 50,000-60,000 SKUs at any point of time. If the customer is not loyal, you can't bank so much on last year's data. If the customer does want a fast changing trend, you can't bank so much on the data that you have. And hence, trying to predict what a customer wants becomes even more difficult. And that's probably the biggest challenge, where the biggest challenge lies. Today, with so much of opportunities or so much of competition in the market, the customer is spoiled for choices. They've not remained so loyal, and hence the whole aspect of data analytics is relevant, but it's also not so relevant and goes against the idea. So that's the biggest challenge. I think the customer behavior, that's probably the biggest challenge that I think most of the fashion or the clothing retailers are dealing with currently. Even the big ones are struggling with that. Also, I think one of the other things which is also very relevant for a retail market, precisely for fashion retail, is where do you manufacture your goods? And most of the manufacturing happens in countries like China, India, Bangladesh. And when we are in such a dynamic world where the whole geopolitical situation is changing, we don't know tomorrow whether the Red Sea Canal would be open or not open. The whole global supply chain disruption creates a lot of problems. Fast fashion also means you need to have something goods on time. And if something disrupts globally, if there's a factory that's gone off in China, you might not have that product. So I think the customer behavior aspect of it, along with the reliance on global supply chain and the disruption there, creates the biggest challenge, and probably the biggest opportunity for technology to come in and aid the space.
Amazing. I think you brought up a great point on customer behavior. Yesterday I was talking to the CEO of Fynd, and he said until last year, 70% of Valentine gifting was ordered by the 12th. This year, 70% of their orders came in on the 13th of February. So on the 14th, they were in a choke situation and they couldn't take any more orders. So no last minute gifting was possible, right? So, but I think great point. Vishesh, I think coming to you, there's on the third dimension, third pillar of retail, right? From stores perspective, there is a lot of innovation that's being driven by HQs, but there is also a lot of innovation that happens at store level, right? In your experience, how do you see in-store opportunities of technology being used and how they're kind of shaping?
Good evening, everyone. There are a lot of large consumer-based companies who speak about how keeping the employee-first approach is always going to eventually work for the customers, right? We say if the employees are happy, the customers are eventually going to be happy. Now, when it comes to deployment of technology at the store, that important point goes missing, right? In my opinion, if we are putting a technology at the store, if we're deploying a technology at the store, which is eventually elevating the way the store staff, the store manager, who's actually the brand ambassador, right? If they're reaching out to the consumer in a much more better way, if they're reaching out in a much more confident way, nothing beats that. That for me is actual store-driven adoption, right? I was part of Aditya for almost 5 years when I was working in the stores as part of their program, and then eventually almost 6.5 years in Fynd developing that technology. I used to crib in the store that why is that all the products being deployed in the store are for the customers and not for the staff, not for the store manager, right? Eventually, when I got the opportunity, I think we created a lot of modules. There are so many products in the market, such as task management, clienteling, endless aisle kind of solution, which makes these guys' life easier, right? It empowers them with a lot of confidence to reach out to the customer in the best possible way. Imagine walking into a store, there's this guy whom you meet, who exactly knows the product detail, who knows how much inventory is available, if it is not available in the size, placing an endless aisle order, having a view of what is available in the other store, having a view of the entire transaction. Then on the other part of it, if he places that order, how much sales is he going to achieve, what is the near target, what is the competitor store doing, right? Getting that entire competition module also part of it is something which is amazing. I mean, if you're reach that level of adoption at the store level, I think nothing beats that.
Amazing. So you're saying essentially technology should be user-based, irrespective of not just
Absolutely
consumer, right? I think a great point, and then probably expanding on that from a customer perspective, right? And how do you see like personalization of staff is what Vishesh was talking about, but I'm sure in your role, you look at a lot of personalized experiences for customers, right? How are you approaching it at Aster, and what are key takeaways?
For us, so in typically for anybody who's in UAE, their lives would have been touched by one of Aster's services, right? We have hospitals, clinics, the entire gamut of services. So trying to make sense of all of that data, as I think was also saying, you get data from various sources, but trying to make sense of that has been what our efforts have been over the past few years. So we use now CRM and predictive analytics to try and break our customer segments down to very specific micro cohorts. So it won't be a spam-based message saying buy XYZ, but very specific. For example, it would be different for a expecting mother versus a mother who's just given birth, for example, right? So that entire CRM journey, your refill reminders, etc., are standard, but getting that more personalized experience in terms of cross-selling, upselling is something that we're focusing on, and we're trying to bring that to the store level as well. So our pharmacist would know whatever you have bought over the past few years, both online and offline, and he would of course recommend basis your purchase history. But if you're trying to buy a magnesium supplement, they would know what goes well with it as well. So what that does is it standardizes the experience across Aster stores, but it also personalizes it for you. And that's a major effort that we call the POS nudges. Essentially, that's what we rolled out. But I think from everyone's perspective at retail, personalization is if you walk into a store and you get what you want. Similarly online, right? So a lot of effort at the back end has been made to automate our warehouses, automate our systems to make sure we stock at the right level. The good thing is we do not have the problems of fast fashion, so so we know that what the customer wants. It's just about trying to get that in the right place. I think online actually has helped us a lot in that aspect. Earlier we used to be very rigid in the sense that in this area only this product will sell, right? But now, because we have the entire gamut of information, both from our shoppers and from the Googles and the searches of the world, we have drastically changed how we merchandise our stores, and that has yielded extremely positive results. So getting all of that information into play and personalizing it for the customer is has been key for us to kind of drive our e-commerce forward, both from an e-pharmacy perspective and the digital care, which we call a consultation, teleconsultation, all that into place.
Thanks. I think, Aditya, to you, an extension of the same question is largely demand planning has a glamorous side, which is all about the customer-facing side of demand, but the other side is the supply side, right, which is inventory and a lot of unsold stocks that remain. How are you leveraging technology to kind of make sure that your stock churns at the right time, and how do you kind of utilize some of those methods?
So essentially, inventory for a fashion company is mostly broken with seasons. So I think most of you would be aware that there's generally 2 seasons: autumn, winter, and spring, summer in a fashion retail. So to be able to get inventory spot on, you kind of bifurcate that into 3 parts. The first is what you do pre-season. So before you start trading, what all things do you do, and what all kind of gives in to have the perfect inventory. That's when you basically order. That's when you start buying, and that's when you start ordering. Where demand or demand forecast plays a big role. In terms of technology, I think data analytics still is playing a key role in to be able to aid a buyer and a planner on what shall be ordered majorly in terms of what sizes to go for what stores, because you start ordering at a store level, not at a business level, as well as to keep in mind certain trends which are more universal. So it gets what sold last year, whether there's t-shirts or shirts, and how do you take that and take it forward. So predictive data analytics for demand forecasting is one of the key technologies that works from a pre-season perspective. Also, from a pre-season perspective, what's very important is you get your stock right on time. So in fast fashion space, you of course can't be late, but because you have to manage your inventories, you also can't be early. So there are a lot of visibility tools, primarily on logistics and supply chain, that aids that part as well, where you have the leverage of pushing and pulling right at the end. So if you want to kind of get something early, you have the air transports and kind of have the visibility to bring it forward. You've also got something to push forward that you don't want in your stock. So from a pre-season perspective, the demand forecasting engine, which is data analytics led, as well as the visibility tool, helps. As you enter in season and you start trading a particular season, one of the big things is the visibility of the stock, and RFID, now about a 10-15-year-old relevant technology in retail, helps that. It kind of gives the view of where a particular stock is, whether it's in the warehouse, store, back store, or it's in transit. So that gives the visibility part of it. I think one of the key progress today, which has been made by technology, is in the field of markdown management. Because in retail, and especially in fast fashion, markdown becomes a very important, or discount becomes a very important tool to liquidate something that's not working. That's where we've seen the highest advent of data analytics along with AI, where today there are tools which can predict, if you give, say, a 20% markdown, what's the increase in rate of sale that you'll see, depending on how it's done last year, depending on what's the trend, depending on the customer that you're trying to give. Also, a level of personalization is brought in today, where for a specific customer, essentially on e-commerce, you can give a tailor-made discount offering or a tailor-made GB. So that's probably where the AI bit and the data analytics bit has progressed the fastest. That's the in-season bit. And then there's a post-season bit as well, because most of the fashion retailer end up selling only one, like they're left with 1/5 of what they've bought for the season. They're not able to sell 100% of whatever they bought for the season. And at that point of time, essentially having your product at the right price, at the right channel, becomes very important. I'll probably talk about one example. Like, as we step today into Ramadan, you'll see a lot of our stores covered with, especially for women's wear, a lot of occasion kind of wearing, a lot of dresses, bling dresses where you can wear these to your suhoods and to the events of Ramadan. Now that sells well during Ramadan, but if you keep that stock and if the leftover stock is left in your brick and mortar stores post Ramadan, you'll not even see one piece selling. But if you consolidate those and keep it on your e-commerce, some of it sells during Diwali for the Indian cohort. Some of it sells if they have certain occasions in their family. So that's one customer trend that we have seen, that if a customer is trying to buy something out of season, they generally tend to go to an e-commerce platform rather than go and search in the mall, in the stores. So how do we post-season ending bifurcate that stock, take it to the right channel at the right price, and how do we liquidate that? So that's where, again, a lot of algorithm-based engines have worked really well for a lot of companies. We at Splash are also trying to develop something which is more of an algorithm-based. So that's how the pre-season bit, the in-season and the post-season breaks up, and that's where the technology kind of aids us to ensure that you get the inventory right spot on.
Very well answered. And very detailed too. Vishesh, I think just expanding further on that, now everything's become unified, right? Customers are shopping, researching online, shopping in store, and the other way around. How are you seeing these trends evolve from a tech perspective, from a platform perspective? How are unified journeys being built where stores and online experiences are almost common?
I think we all know that the online e-commerce business compared to probably a brick and mortar business is growing 2x, 3x, 10x, right? Each and every brand you look at, I mean, there's no comparison between the way the online business is growing, right? But every time you shop online, the kind of experiences which you can avail online, the experience when you go into the store is absolutely broken, right? There can be various reasons for that, but probably one of the biggest reasons is that none of the systems are actually seamless in talking to each other, right? Tomorrow, if you want a seamless experience at the store, I know a lot of brands whom I speak to want to do click and collect, right? So if you buy something online, you want to collect the same product at the store, and that kind of unifies the journey. But that's not the only thing available there, right? Right now, you have a website which is on another platform. You have a TMS, WMS working on some other platform. You have CRM tools, loyalty tools. Those are on another platform, right? I mean, the right answer to all of this, as in the fact that Jonathan also highlighted, is having like a proper unified commerce platform in place, right? You don't even want to have a middleware. You don't want any kind of sally motion between the APIs, which can build like a language which can go seamlessly together. The only answer to this is probably having a unified commerce platform. So the kind of experience that you're having in the store, the kind of experience which you see online needs to be seamless. And until unless your entire tech stack is probably on one commerce solution on one platform, it's going to be very difficult.
I think great point. Anmol, just coming back to you for probably a last round of questions, maybe the same question to everyone, and you can all answer it in your way. But over the next 5 years, and this is the same question I asked Jonathan, what are your key goals and what do you think the world in 2030 will look like for Anmol, Aditya, and Vishesh?
That's a curveball. See, what I think it's pretty standard knowledge of omni-channel customer. Lifetime value is higher, retention is higher, spends more than a purely offline or a purely online customer, right? And I think I was just chatting to someone. What we are trying to push is to get all our customers to interact on both platforms. So that is definitely one. Second is how can we, for us at least, because our business is a lot of prescription-based business, how can we improve that process significantly further? So right now there are delays across insurances, there are delays in just getting the prescription from a clinic to a pharmacy. So there's a lot of work we are doing to try to make that process entirely seamless. And then we're also working to make sure that you can order your prescription very seamlessly as well through the platform, through our platform. And I think third is how well can we leverage analytics and our data. And I know we all talk about getting AI into our day-to-day life cycle, but right now we still depend a lot on lagging indicators. What has sold is what we're going to sell. A little bit of more predictive analytics is where we are trying to head towards. Of course, there's a lot of work we are doing and to be done on that front. But I think that is where the industry overall is shifting, and also how we manage customer expectations is something important. So I think we touched upon if a company should go to marketplace or not. How well can you expand your assortment, and how quickly can you do that? It is essentially how e-commerce is going to grow. So you have to make that fine line between growth and customer experience, and that is something that we are all trying to navigate through now increased cross-border transactions, increased options to customers on getting what they want online very quickly. So yeah, those are the 3-4 pieces that we think is going to shape e-commerce and retail in the region.
So I think for Splash, but also for the industry, the fast fashion industry, I think there's a threefold challenge. The first and the biggest is how do you remain relevant? Because somebody like us who's been into this industry for about 33 years, where we've had our core competencies in planning a season 12 months in advance, where we start 12 months in advance and then deliver. And when we see somebody like Singh and they talk about 21 days from research to delivery, it becomes a big challenge or a big question whether you want to stick to your core competencies or whether you want to move to something that somebody else is a disruptor doing. And there's always that fear of not becoming the Nokia of the fashion industry. So you want to be relevant, you want to be relevant to your consumer. So that's probably the biggest challenge that we have. The second biggest challenge is about being profitable as well, because when you see, I think Jonathan, you talked about Trendyol, you see companies like Shein, Trendyol, Temu come into this market space with stacks of cash to burn, be it on marketing, be it on customer acquisition, be it on the product prices as well. It becomes really difficult to be able to compete with that because essentially you're targeting the same customer. So how do you remain profitable with the whole ecosystem that you've built? How do you remain profitable with the suppliers and make them profitable? How do you ensure stores which were running at a certain capex and opex continues to run that? So along with being relevant, being profitable is the key second challenge, where it's currently becoming very, very crammed and very, very tight. And then the third challenge is the buzzword of sustainability in the industry, where we see a lot of brands banking on the fact that they want to be sustainable. But today, at least in the region, the customer is not willing to pay additional for a sustainable garment or for a sustainable brand. And sustainability comes at a cost unless you're just going and whitewashing, greenwashing that. So third challenge is how do you continue to remain sustainable, you continue to remain relevant for the environment, but without having a cost attached to it, because as I said, most of the customers still want something sustainable, something to come which is good for the earth, but they're not willing to pay an additional price for that. So I think that's probably being relevant, being profitable, and how do you gamble with the buzzword in the industry, sustainable, how do you tackle that? That's the whole challenge that we're facing.
Just very UAE specific, but with rising rentals, especially for retail, the payback period for opening a new store has changed significantly, right? From 12 to 24 months to now 36 months and beyond. So that question of churn of stores, how many do you shut which are either loss-making or margin dilutive, even if they're profitable, versus opening new stores at higher rentals and then higher payback period, then also becomes a key challenge to navigate. And how do you leverage your current network versus growing to new stores and flagship stores becomes very relevant, especially for how the rental market has gone in UAE.
I love it when e-commerce guys talk about stores.
I'm gonna stick to stores. I think from a technology perspective, we've been building it from a very long time now. What really excites me is seeing new technologies being deployed at the stores, right? Seamless, of course, from the unified commerce platform point of view, but also enhancing the customer experience at the store. I see year on year self-checkout kiosks improving, right? There were barcode scanners and now there are RFID bins. But what really intrigues me is probably the product recommendation and the smart mirror kind of things being put at the stores. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I walk into a store and if I see a smart mirror which can scan my body type, my color, and give me smart recommendations about what I really want to wear, right? I can put in an input, I want to go to a smart casual day or probably a street wear on a Friday evening. I don't know what to wear. Like I take like 15, 20 minutes every day in the morning to figure out what is going to match with what. And at the end of the day, I eventually keep wearing blue. Half of my wardrobe is just blue. I don't know how many of you guys have that problem, but getting those smart recommendations, because you have such a huge database, right? You need that validation, and if it is coming from the tech, then I don't think you would need anything. So search engines, product recommendations, and those smart mirrors, I think those are going to be absolute gold in the stores for the next 5 years.
Amazing. I think great conversation. I could have continued longer, but Kritika is already showing me the watch. We'll take a few questions from the audience if there are any.
I have a question for Aditya, my team Avenger member. Aditya, since we both belong to fast fashion industry, what do you think homegrown brands, fashion brand, has gone wrong where? Because you see 300 days out of 365 days they are on sale. There's one color banner. So you go walk in any store and you find a sale promotion. Yes, it's there. Somewhere they have gone wrong in demand forecasting or demand planning. So what are the key aspects that retailers should do in order to correct the situation?
So I think you made a very relevant point, and I think that's one question that even the director at my company keeps on asking me: how do we reduce the number of sale days that we have? And I think that's one drug that we have given to our consumers, primarily to kind of attract them to buy what we have bought. And this ties back to the same reason of customer behavior, because most of the traditional companies like us, they tend to think of the consumer in a certain way, and then they demand forecast in that certain way, and then they deliver in that certain way, wherein the customer is changing much faster than the technology demand forecast that's changing. And hence when you see something on the floor that's probably not relevant for the customer, which you felt was relevant. And at that point of time, the biggest pressure on any retailer is to clean up their shop, because if they don't clean up their inventory, they will not end up having fresh stock to come in. And that's where the markdown drug comes in, and that's where we tend to give that to customer. Now, I agree with you that most of the local retailers in the GCC have overdone it, including us. But we also see an example of, say, a Zara or a Primark who have not done it, and have successfully been able to conquer, stay there without giving a big drug to that. And that essentially ties back to whether are you a trend setter in the market or you're a trend follower. Essentially, Zara, in the space that they are a trend setter. So even if they get something wrong, customer thinks it's a trend, and they feel that you've kind of suggest that's what is in trend and that's what you have to wear. But if you're a trend follower, like probably globally H&M is, and in the region it's like of us, of R&B, Max, it becomes essentially very difficult to be able to cope up with that. Now, have there been advancements here? Of course, there have been advancements. One of the biggest thing, again, a buzzword in the industry is what we call as close to season. So basically, where we were 18, 12 months forward, how do you wait right till the end to identify a trend and get something for the consumer, which can be straight off from the ramp walk? So there have been advancements here that you wait till the end, where technology has helped us a lot. But are we there? Not really. And the 300 days sales that you see probably next year will be 270 days, but it's not going away for sure.
One last question. Sriket has a question.
Direct. We'll park it for later.
I have a question for Aditya.
Yes.
When it comes to fast fashion, you spoke about one of the threats that's looming, which is the trend of sustainability. But especially talking locally, are you also concerned about what Gen Z is talking about or being aware about overconsumption? Generally, locally, especially in the region, we're seeing a lot of movement towards ultra HNI. Right? We're talking about trends, we're talking about affordability being an issue slowly in the next 5 years for salaried income population here. So are you seeing those kind of challenges in the near future apart from just sustainability?
So I don't think consumption has been a challenge, at least in this region as well as most globally as well. What has been a challenge is the number of competition brewing. So the pie essentially has remained the same of the consumer and the consumption, but there are a lot more people vying for that pie today. And do we see a challenge in GCC about the younger consumer fearing overconsumption? We read a lot about it. There's the view that Gen Zs don't want to have a lot of things in their wardrobe, but we also see right in front of our eyes companies like Shein and Temu being the biggest disruptor, becoming billion-dollar companies in about 12 months to 18 months, which essentially tells us that the same young consumer, if it's offered at a very cheap price, is buying 5 tops and 10 dresses, and hence we do see a lot of content about the young consumer being very, very sensitive to overconsumption and vying for sustainability, but we don't see that in the numbers and the actions that they're doing actually, which kind of creates that confusion for a traditional retailer like us. Should we, because that's a thin line between being a sustainable brand and being a fast fashion brand. You can't be both. So where do we pivot? Where does the consumer is, and where do we pivot ourselves to keep ourselves relevant? But that's a very good question. I think that's one question that we ask ourselves daily. That do we want to go the sustainability route, or do we want to go the fast fashion route? From what we see in the numbers that these people are doing, I think the consumer is over consuming, and with the increased competition, the pie is only becoming tighter and it's becoming difficult to retain that customer.
So I think it's sort of a decision between becoming a unique look and increasing your availability in your own manner versus becoming a Zara.
Because both of them have found their right niche, and the other retailers are all in between, including the likes of H&M. Uniqlo again have got it's essentially a technology company in terms of garments as a technology company. They've got their niche absolutely right, but we do see likes of Patagonia, we do see these sustainable companies come up and suddenly get a big chunk and then fade away. So you're right, there is the two extremes, and most of the retailers, including us, we have this everyday confusion of whether to go this way or the other way.
I think Vishal had a question.
It's to Aditya again on sustainability. Is sustainability a need for the consumer or from a business perspective that you're doing well for the environment? So where does that come in?
So it's the question about being responsible as an organization, and whether you want to be responsible or not. There would be laws soon into our regions as well, which have already started coming in Europe and US. So you have to be sustainable and you will have to be responsible. But the fact is, whether you're sustainable for being compliant to the law or being responsible, or you're trying to be sustainable to be able to market that to the consumer. Because as I said, sustainability in any form comes at a cost. We are being in a business of making profit, so we would obviously want to comply to the law and be able to show ourselves as a responsible company. But I think any company would also want to leverage it as a marketing tool and gain something out of it. So soon it will become a compliance thing, and we'll have to be. And I think that's why most of the companies are heading in that direction. But everybody today wants to use that to be able to gain an additional or a new customer.
I'd like
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Shankar. I am GM of Endo Logistics. We are into traditional logistics as well as e-commerce. Prior to this, I was into the FMCG industry. I have a different opinion on sustainability. Sustainability is not a cost. Sustainability drives efficiency. We need to look at it from a different perspective. I think the way we look at sustainability is all about EVs, which I am completely against. I don't think EV anyway promotes sustainability. You have to look at your day-to-day operations. And I can give you examples from my case. I was heading a FMCG company here, and every aspect of right from the process across, you start from your procurement. If you plan your procurement properly, you do your consolidations. We used to even do chiller consolidations. So instead of having multiple shipments coming, we do consolidations of chiller shipments into one container and then promote the green cost. Again, the kind of lines that you engage for your shipping. If you go for larger vessels, obviously you're promoting sustainability. So you need to really look beyond. Trust me, your EVs and other stuff that you're talking about, superficial approach. On the ground, you can make a big difference, and it's a necessity for the business. I had set up a distribution hub, which is again gold rated by the municipality that gives its highest rating. It promotes sustainability, it also drives efficiencies. Inside the warehouse, you can do so many things. When you're operating electric vehicles, if you look at your process, if you're operating a vehicle from what do you call when it goes into the air and the return trip, if it comes back empty, you're losing your what do you call not utilizing the batteries efficiently. Your battery is again a major component when it comes to your sustainability. If you can make sure the vehicle comes back with a load, you're utilizing, enhancing the efficiencies of the machine. Similarly, the batteries also, if you're properly managed, your battery is again a key component for your entire environmental cost as well as your cost also. If you rotate and manage your batteries properly, the average industry life for a battery is 4 years. We have managed for 8 years and still have continuing. Same applies everything. Your what you call solar energy, if you promote on top of the same, that is again sustainability. And I have gone for models where the company did not invest any single penny. It was all on a lease model, and then we made it broke even in 5 years. On distribution front, I'm just telling you simple cases.
Do you have a question coming up, or are you sharing your experiences?
Experiences, I'm telling you the way we look at sustainability. Often, this is not the first time I've seen the way people talk about sustainability. It's not a cost; it is a necessity for business.
Yeah, no, I think just to clarify, probably I think what I understood from Aditya was that it is one of the elements of sustainability. So, from a business perspective, when you're looking at business, then there is a cost to sustainability, which say a 5-year ROI versus. So I think just to put it from an e-commerce perspective, like Jonathan also touched upon it, right? Saying there are certain realities of the business today that you need to meet to be sustainably growing into the next phase of growth, right? So I think from there, cost comes as a conversation, especially in a role where you are doing buying, merchandising, etc. And therefore, probably I think he was hinting at cost being an essential pillar that you should look at when you're looking at sustainability as a theme. Whether you're doing sustainability to get more customers or to drive your costs down, or is it really a commitment from the organization? Most of the time, sustainability will work when sustainability is a part of the DNA of the organization. Sustainability has to be lived; it cannot be made. So I think all of those are true. I completely respect that you built it for your organization. You're sharing those observations, but I think essentially both of you are saying the same thing. But maybe he's saying it from an operational execution perspective and realities of a P&L role. But from a larger, top-down approach from a management perspective, I think it's great to hear your comment.
Yeah, I'm just sharing my experience.
Sure.
What do you call a load on the return trip? But if we can move something to facilitate a load in the return trip, you're taking vehicles off the road. That also promotes your sustainability. And simple things like I'll tell you, when I came on board, this lasts just 1 minute, okay? When I came on board, the vehicles were being refueled in the fuel stations. Daily, they were losing on an average 40 minutes. And that we made it in-house. When I made it in-house, all these vehicles were refueled in the night during non-operated time. So morning time, these vehicles are available for operations. The number of drops have increased. And if I have to put it in a tangible perspective, 1,200 vehicles were put off, trips were put off-road in a year. So these are all substantial, they make a difference.
So here you again have to choose between what the customer is looking for and what your organization is targeting towards a cost and sustainability perspective, right? Now, for example, you talked about consolidation of orders. Now, I run a hyper-local e-commerce company, so I have to do point-to-point delivery. I can easily batch my orders, make sure that only one rider is able to deliver 10 trips in 2 hours versus he delivering in 2 hours 4 orders. But that is how the customer and the competition and the competitive landscape is evolving. And for me to remain relevant, I have to make those choices. So of course you can do X, Y, Z things for improving operational efficiencies and being more sustainable, but then you have to also choose between being competitive, right? And that is what I think we are all looking to work
You
towards.
have to balance. I do agree on that, but again, I'm telling that there's a lot that can be done. And the balance
Absolutely.
act.
Thank you, Shankar. I think great insights. Thank you very
Thanks.
much.